If you ever want to know your value in a family, wait until there's something to split. In my case, it was a college laptop. My brother, Max, got a brand new top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, preloaded with Adobe Suite, Final Cut Pro, and even a custom engraving that said, "Go change the world, Max!" My parents practically threw a ribbon-cutting ceremony for it. My mom took pictures of him unboxing it like it was a newborn baby. My dad nodded with solemn pride, the same way he looked at his grill when it cooked steak perfectly. I, on the other hand? I got my dad's old desktop PC. Not just old, prehistoric. I think the last time it turned on, YouTube still had 5-star ratings. It came with a thick layer of dust, a loud internal fan that wheezed like a dying animal, and a sticky note taped to the monitor that said, "Use grateful eyes." That was my mom's version of a pep talk. "Be grateful," she said, smiling like a villain who just cut the brakes. I didn't say anything. I just took it to my room. See, I'd learned early that reacting was a trap. If you complained, you were ungrateful. If you accepted it, you were resilient. And if you quietly did something incredible with it, that's when the panic set in. I didn't have Max's flair, or his 4.2 GPA, or his leadership potential that apparently glowed so bright it blinded my parents to anything I did. What I had was curiosity, and an unhealthy obsession with figuring out how things worked, even if they weren't supposed to anymore. So while Max went off to college with a silver laptop and a crowd of cheerleaders, I stayed home and cracked open a PC case held together by prayer and dried ketchup. Inside was a world of chaos. Wires dangling like vines, a broken power supply, and a motherboard that looked like it had seen the Great Depression. But you know what else was inside? Opportunity. Because fixing things, especially things that were abandoned, had become my specialty. I started digging through old forums, YouTube repair videos, Reddit threads that hadn't been updated in 5 years. I pulled spare parts from garage sale towers, rebuilt a boot system from scratch, and custom wired a cooling fan using a dollar store desk fan and leftover glue from my 8th grade science project. And slowly, like Frankenstein's monster, the thing blinked to life. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast. But it was mine. And while Max was uploading selfies from his dorm with captions like, "Work hard, play hard, laptop, computer, hot beverage," I was in my basement, building something that would quietly change my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me rewind, because this wasn't just about a busted PC. This was about every moment leading up to it. The birthdays where Max got AirPods and I got socks. The family dinners where everyone asked about his lectures and no one asked if I was still alive. The time my science project was selected for regionals and my parents said, "Oh, cool. But have you seen Max's economics paper?" I wasn't the black sheep. I was the invisible one. And somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to be seen, and started building a world where I didn't need them to look at me. But the broken PC was the first spark. 1 week after I fixed it, I accidentally turned it into something else entirely. A prototype. An idea. Something I'd been sketching in notebooks for months but never had the hardware to test. A modular desktop unit with an open framework that could adapt to cheap replacement parts. Like a Raspberry Pi had a child with a Swiss Army knife. I didn't know if it would work. I just knew I couldn't stop now. So I kept going. Late nights. Energy drinks. Coding while my parents watched TV upstairs and assumed I was playing Fortnite in the dark. Soldering circuit boards by hand with shaky fingers and a cracked soldering pen from eBay. Sketching out diagrams on the back of junk mail and saving files on 5 different USBs because I didn't trust the system not to explode. Max called once to brag about his dorm suite and the cafe lattes in his student lounge. I just said, "Cool." He didn't ask what I was doing. No one did. And maybe that was the best part. Because when no one's watching, there's no one to tell you what you can't do. The startup didn't begin as a startup. It began as a fix. Then an upgrade. Then a prototype I posted anonymously in a tech subreddit, just to see if anyone cared. They did. A retired engineer commented, "If you build this into a kit, I'll buy 5. Another wrote, "Where can I donate to make this real?" I didn't even have a name for it yet. But I had something better. Momentum. And all of it started with that busted, wheezing computer that my mom handed me like a punishment. That's when I knew I wasn't just fixing old hardware. I was rewriting the whole damn system. The Reddit post wasn't supposed to do numbers. It was 3 a.m., and I was riding the high of finally getting my Frankenstein rig to boot without the sound of dying raccoons coming from the fan. I snapped a pic of the build on my desk, a weird mesh of recycled parts, zip ties, and handwritten notes taped across the side panel like a mad scientist's journal. Caption: Rebuilt my dad's 2006 Office PC into a modular reparable desktop. Booted Linux in under 5 minutes. Runs clean. Feels weirdly personal. I added a few photos. Nothing fancy. No clickbait. No begging for upvotes. Just posted it. I woke up the next day to 6,000 upvotes. By lunchtime, it was 17K. By dinner, I was fielding DMs from engineers, hobbyists, and one guy who worked at a nonprofit teaching coding to underprivileged kids in Detroit. He asked if I'd consider turning the concept into something they could teach students to build from scrap hardware. That message stuck. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone who ever got the broken leftovers, the hand-me-down junk, the be grateful specials while someone else in the house got everything new and shiny. My inbox exploded. People were offering tips, wiring diagrams, even testing offers. One guy wanted to send me parts from his company's discarded hardware pile. Another asked if I'd consider doing a Kickstarter. Meanwhile, upstairs, my parents were arguing about which Netflix password still worked. They didn't ask why I'd been sleeping 3 hours a night. Or why I stopped eating dinner with them. Or why I kept disappearing into the garage, soldering until my hands shook. Max called again. He needed help logging into our family Hulu account. "Hey, do you still live at home?" he asked, like it was an afterthought. "Yeah," I said. He laughed. "That sucks." Then he hung up. I didn't even bother responding. Because at that point, I had prototype V2 on the table. Slimmer, quieter, easier to assemble. I'd ordered parts from eBay, some from local shops, and even bartered with a guy in my town who had a busted projector for trade. My bedroom looked like a tech graveyard, only I was performing resurrection rituals every night. I didn't have a business plan. But I had a name. Ricor. Built from scraps. Made to last. It felt right. No venture capital. No slick logos. Just the concept of building something lasting out of the pieces most people throw away. I bought a domain name for $12. Uploaded a short page, just a rough overview, some build instructions, a contact form. And then I uploaded a second Reddit post linking to it. This time, it went viral. Not just Reddit. Tech forums. Discord channels. Facebook groups. Even one Reddit mod messaged me. "Are you aware this hit hacker news? You're kind of blowing up, dude." I wasn't. But I became very aware when I got my first bulk inquiry. "Would you be able to supply 20 to 25 kits per month for a community learning program? We have funding available." Funding? You mean money? I opened the spreadsheet I'd been using to track parts and suppliers and started calculating. And here's the wild part. I could do it. If I could streamline parts, automate some printing, maybe outsource laser cut panels to a local shop, I could actually do it. I didn't need a Shark Tank investor. I just needed Wi-Fi and enough desk space to build 5 units at a time. So I cleared the garage. Sold off my childhood bike, my barely working Xbox, and an old coin collection my dad said was worthless anyway. Pushed aside the lawn tools and folding chairs, and laid down a cheap plastic table from a clearance sale. And just like that, Ricor HQ was born, 15 feet from the fridge my mom stocked for Max's visits home. Still, no one in my house noticed. No one asked about the shipping boxes that started arriving. Or the 3D printed casings stacked on the laundry room shelf. Or the soldering fumes. Or the fact that I was running to the post office every afternoon with carefully packed kits wrapped in brown paper. Max was busy being the family trophy. Dad bragged about his Dean's List status to anyone who'd listen, even though the only reason Max passed economics was because he copied someone's homework for a full semester. I knew. I'd seen the messages. But I said nothing. Because I had 20 new orders to fulfill. Because I was emailing an engineer in Germany who wanted to help optimize my cooling system. Because I had a phone call scheduled with a school district in Arizona that wanted to roll out Record in 3 of their classrooms. And because the kid who got the broken PC was quietly building something bigger than any of them could imagine. Still, part of me wondered. When would they notice? When would the people who told me to be grateful realize they'd handed me a spark? Well, they'd find out soon enough. Just not the way they expected. It wasn't a holiday or anything. Max just showed up one Friday night with 3 duffel bags, a Bluetooth speaker, and a grin like he owned the place. Mom practically burst into tears. "Look at you!" she gushed, hugging him like he'd survived war. "How's the dorm? How's college? Are the professors treating you well?" Dad grinned from the couch, already pulling up ESPN4. Bonding time. Nobody asked why he came home unannounced, or why he didn't bring his laptop. But I noticed. I noticed everything. And more importantly, I noticed what he noticed, because Max, bless his barely passing GPA, isn't exactly subtle. The first time he walked past the garage, he did a double take. The tables, the stacked kits, the boxes labeled Record Batches Week 4. The soldering gear. The whiteboard with code sketches and prototype notes. He stood in the doorway like he was trying to remember if this was still a garage or a tech lab. "You building stuff?" he asked. I didn't even look up. "Yeah," he scoffed. "Okay, Mr. Elon." Then he walked off like I just told him I was painting rocks. But the seed was planted. Over the weekend, he kept circling, watching from the corner of his eye, picking up random tools like he knew what they were. At dinner, Mom made a big show of asking him about school. "How are your professors?" "Oh, they love Max," Dad cut in. "One of them told him he has leadership in his blood." I almost choked on my spaghetti. Max smirked and shrugged. "Yeah. I might be moving into a mentorship role." Meanwhile, I had shipped out 32 kits that week. Record was being tested in 2 pilot classrooms. A tech blog had emailed me for an interview. But no one asked what I'd been up to. Not once. Until Sunday afternoon. I came back from the post office, balancing a stack of return receipts, and found Max sitting at my desk, using my PC. He spun slowly in the chair, like some cartoon villain. "Your website's clean," he said, tapping the monitor. "Bit basic. But it loads fast." I stared at him. "Why are you touching my stuff?" "Relax. I was just curious. Didn't know you were building a whole startup in here." "Mom and Dad don't know either, by the way." He said it like it was a joke. But his eyes didn't match his tone. And that's when I realized something. Max was uncomfortable. Uncertainty didn't look good on him. He was used to being the one people bragged about. The one who got the applause just for showing up. And now? He was in my garage, using my Wi-Fi, clicking through a website I built from scratch while he was sipping chai lattes at his campus Starbucks. "What do you want, Max?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just saying, if this thing takes off, maybe let me know. Could be fun to collaborate." "Collaborate?" I blinked. "Yeah, you know. You do the nerdy stuff. I handle the pitch. Get some investors, clean it up, get it on shelves." I just stared at him. This man couldn't format a Word doc without crashing something. He once called HDMI a setting. And now he wanted to pitch my company? I didn't argue. I didn't have to. Because 2 days later, Record got featured in a newsletter run by a guy who used to work at MIT. That link? It got reposted. Then picked up by a low-level tech journalist. Then that journalist DM'd me asking for a quick call. And that call? Turned into a full article. Headline: "This team turned scrap into a startup that could disrupt the DIY PC industry." It dropped on a Wednesday. By Thursday, Record's waitlist had 200 names. By Friday, I'd sold out of all current units. And by Saturday morning, I was trending. Nothing huge. Not worldwide. But in tech circles? People were suddenly talking about That kid with the modular build kits. That's when things shifted at home. Mom stood in the hallway, holding her phone with a confused frown. Do you know someone named Chris Tenner? I froze. Why? He emailed the family account asking if he could schedule a video interview with you about. Record? What is that anyway? I took a breath. It's my company. You have a company? Dad leaned in from the living room. Wait, hold on. Are you in trouble? Max, sitting on the couch with his arms crossed, muttered. He's not in trouble. He's blowing up. That's when Mom gave me the look. Why didn't you tell us? Look as if they'd ever given me space to share anything that didn't involve Max or matching towels for the guest bathroom. I just shrugged. You said be grateful. And I was. Grateful for the silence. Grateful for the neglect. Grateful enough to never need their help again. It started small. Hey, we were just talking, Mom said, leaning against the garage door frame like she'd discovered the place for the first time. You should think about incorporating. You know, to protect yourself legally. Dad chimed in. We could help you. We've got experience, you know. Experience? My dad once tried to start a pressure washing side hustle and nearly power blasted the neighbor's cat. I nodded politely. I'm already working with someone on that. You are? Mom's voice spiked like I'd said I was moving to Mars. Who? A business mentor. Someone from the incubator program I applied to. Dead silence. Max, who'd been conveniently walking past, stopped. What? I sighed. Startup incubator. They help young founders scale. Oh, he said, clearly trying to look unfazed. Like Shark Tank, but with less yelling? Honestly, not a bad summary. But now that the article was out, the family mood had changed. Drastically. I wasn't the forgotten second son anymore. I was a potential lottery ticket. They started doing this thing, casually showing up in the garage while I worked, offering advice I never asked for. Dad told me I should add a screen so people know it's working. Mom thought the logo needed more pop. Max once printed out a fake spreadsheet to show me how he could help track synergy trends, which I'm 98% sure he copied from a marketing blog. It was laughable. Except it wasn't. Because one evening, I found Max in the garage alone, hunched over my prototype shelf, phone out, taking pictures of everything. What are you doing? I asked, trying to keep my voice level. He jumped. Oh, nothing. Just wanted to show some friends. You know, maybe get you some exposure. I walked over and deleted the photos myself. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. Not then. But later that night, the real blow came. I got an email. From a startup forum I joined months ago. New thread posted in, DIY Tech Kits by user Max Innovates. I clicked it. There, plain as day, was a post titled, Coming soon, modular DIY PC kits, from our family to yours. And below it? Photos of my designs. My layout. My kits. But renamed. Corkrate, a family-powered innovation project by Max, last name. I stared at the screen for a full minute, heartbeat ringing in my ears. Family-powered? The only thing Max ever powered was the blender when he made protein shakes he never cleaned up after. I marched straight to his room. The door was closed, but I didn't knock. He looked up, smiling like he just brokered world peace. Hey. Saw you saw the post. What? Is that? He leaned back. Just a teaser. Relax. It's not like I said you weren't involved. You posted my work. Without permission. Bro, we're family, he said like that word fixed anything. We're stronger together. Think about it. I handle the marketing, you do your nerdy tech stuff, and we split everything. Mom and Dad already love the name. Corkrate. Has a ring to it, right? I didn't answer. Not with words. I just walked back to the garage, locked my cabinets, encrypted my drives, and changed every password I had. Then I wrote a cease and desist. To my brother. Typed. Printed. Hand-delivered. He laughed when he saw it. Bro, you're serious? Dead serious. You really think that's gonna stop me? He smirked. No. But I knew what would. I reached out to my contact at the tech blog. Sent proof. Screenshots. Even timestamped prototypes. I also forwarded everything to the school Max attended. Because guess what? Stealing IP while benefiting from student resources? That's called academic fraud. Especially when the IP isn't yours. By morning, the post was gone. Max, however, wasn't. He stormed into the garage mid-packaging run, eyes wild. You reported me to the school? I protected my work, I said calm. You're unbelievable. No, Max, I replied. I'm just done letting you cash checks off work you didn't do. That was the beginning of the real split. Not just between me and Max, but between me and the entire fantasy my parents had clung to for years. The one where Max was the golden child and I was the backup. They couldn't handle it. They kept asking me to forgive. To be the bigger person. To keep it in the family. But Ricor? Ricor wasn't family owned. It was family proof. And I was just getting started. It had been a week since Max's little stunt, the fake company, the photos, the family-powered nonsense. And while I thought things had quieted down, what actually happened was far worse. They regrouped. Max slunk back to campus with his ego bruised and his phone mysteriously reset to factory settings. No comment. But now my parents were taking center stage, and they didn't like being out of the loop anymore. Especially not when there were whispers. One of Mom's Pilates friends apparently saw a LinkedIn post about Ricor. Her son was a TA at a tech boot camp, and he mentioned a scrappy modular startup built by that kid from Ridgeview. Mom decided that meant I needed help. And by help, I mean control. It was a Thursday morning. I had a shipping deadline for a school pilot kit and a Zoom call scheduled with a nonprofit in Vancouver. That's when the knock came. I opened the door to find my parents standing side by side, like real estate agents or amateur hostage negotiators. Mom held a binder. Dad held a travel mug and the kind of forced smile people make right before telling you your dog ran away. We want to talk, Mom said. About what? About your future, she replied. I stepped aside, reluctantly. Mostly because I didn't have the energy to argue while holding a soldering iron. They walked into the garage like tourists, heads swiveling, eyes scanning every label, wire, and bin like they were preparing to open a Yelp page on the operation. Then Mom dropped the bomb. We've been talking, she said, flipping open the binder like it was the Constitution. And we think it's time we make this a real business. I blinked. It is a real business. Dad nodded. Right, but we mean with a proper structure. A family LLC. We handle the finances, keep things clean. You focus on your little builds. No distractions. My little builds. I turned to Mom. So you want me to hand over ownership, do you? Don't be dramatic, she said in a tone that made me want to flip a table. We'd all benefit. It's ours, after all. Ours? Yes, she said casually. We gave you the garage, the roof over your head. That PC, even if it was old, got you started. I swear, I almost laughed. Instead, I reached into a drawer, pulled out a document, and slapped it on the workbench. It was the sole proprietorship certificate. Ricor was already registered. Under my name. Their faces stiffened. Mom blinked. When did you do this? Months ago. You didn't tell us. You didn't ask. Dad's mug made a hollow thunk as he set it down harder than necessary. Son, he said, shifting tones, you're getting in over your head. You've got something decent going here, but you don't know how the world works yet. Let us help. No, Dad. You want to own it. Mom's voice sharpened. You're being ungrateful. There it was. The golden phrase. The family motto. Be grateful. Grateful for being ignored? Grateful for the broken leftovers? Grateful that they only noticed me when other people started noticing first? I leaned back against the bench and let the silence sit for a second. Then I said calmly, I don't need a family LLC. I need space to work. Then maybe it's time you start paying rent, Dad said. His tone had dropped now, cold, rigid, corporate. I just smiled. I already do. Check the mortgage statement. That one hit hard. Because they didn't know. 2 months earlier, I'd started making silent contributions to the mortgage, directly. Through the portal. Just to keep the peace. Now, I wasn't so sure I wanted to keep doing that. Is that supposed to impress us? Dad said, though his face said otherwise. No, I replied. It's supposed to remind you I'm not your intern. They left without another word, but not before Mom said something under her breath. Max would have handled this differently. She was right. Max would have let them take over. I wouldn't. And just to make sure there were no more visits, I installed a keypad lock on the garage door. That weekend, something even crazier happened. The nonprofit in Vancouver? They loved the pilot kits. They wanted to order 100 more. And they invited me to present Record at a youth tech summit. Flight. Hotel. Covered. I stared at the email for a long time before calling the one person I knew would get it, my old CS teacher, Mr. Groves. He was the first person who ever said I had potential. Back when I got detention for hacking the school printer and making it play MIDI music during tests. He picked up on the second ring. You finally going pro? He asked. Looks like it. About time. And just like that, I felt something shift. No more hiding in garages. No more explaining myself to people who only saw me when I could be used. It was time to take Record beyond this house. Far beyond. 3 weeks later, I stepped onto a conference stage in a hotel ballroom in Vancouver. There were 2 massive banners behind me, one with my name and the Record logo, and another that just read, "Innovation isn't always polished." Someone on the summit team had pulled that quote from my Reddit post. And they were right. I wasn't polished. I still used zip ties to hold some prototype parts together. I still shipped from my garage. And the first version of my business cards had my Venmo handle on them because I hadn't figured out invoicing yet. But that morning, I stood in front of an audience of 600 educators, engineers, coders, and founders. I showed slides. I shared test results. I even got a round of applause when I explained how every Record kit used discarded parts from schools and nonprofits. Repurposed, cleaned, rebuilt. I ended with a single sentence. I wasn't given much. But I was given enough to build something better. The applause lasted longer than I expected. Backstage, one of the organizers handed me a lanyard. Congrats, she said. You're one of the 5 people selected for direct funding interviews. I blinked. Funding? Yep. Up to $100,000. Non-equity. Just support. I just stood there for a second. My hands literally shook. A few hours later, I was sipping bad hotel coffee in a quiet lounge area, waiting to talk to 2 potential donors, one from a youth tech fund, the other from a hardware accelerator. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Max. You're at that nerd conference? Mom saw a tweet. She's freaking out. Dad said we need to talk, LOL. I didn't reply. 5 minutes later, a screenshot popped up. It was a Facebook post. My name. My face. A picture of the conference banner. But not from a news page. Not from tech media. From my mother's account. So proud of our brilliant son. He's come so far. Always knew he'd do something amazing with his tech skills. #FamilyBusiness #Record. Family. Business. I almost spit out my coffee. I stared at the screen like it had personally insulted me. The same woman who told me, be grateful, when I got a 12-year-old broken PC was now publicly claiming credit for a business she tried to hijack. A business she wanted me to hand over weeks earlier. And the comments? Oh my God, you must be such proud parents. Knew he was gifted. When are you launching in the States? Can't wait to support your family's venture. I closed the app. I didn't block her. I didn't comment. I just quietly updated the About page on the Record website that evening, added a short section about founding story. It included the busted PC, the ignored dinners, the family support that never showed until the money did. I didn't name names. But I didn't have to. The wording was enough for anyone who knew me, and apparently, a few from back home did. The next day, during the post-panel networking session, a woman tapped my shoulder. "Hey, you're Mason, right?" "Yeah." "I'm Jill. My brother lives in Ridgeview. He sent me your story. Said, and I quote, 'The kid who got tossed the junk PC just got a standing ovation in Vancouver.'" I couldn't help but laugh. She smiled. "Anyway, I work with a school district back in Colorado. We'd like to bring you in for a pilot. We've got 4,000 students across 12 schools." I nearly dropped my drink. She handed me a card and said, "Think about it. We'll fund your travel." After she walked away, I just stood there, surrounded by tables of people pitching million-dollar apps and AI-powered toothbrushes, holding a card from someone who actually wanted to invest in kids who got junk. That's when I realized something. I'd built more than a business. I'd built proof. Proof that you don't need a golden laptop or cheerleaders in your living room to matter. You just need a broken PC, a soldering iron, and a reason to keep going. When I got home from Vancouver, the house felt rehearsed. Mom was chopping salad in the kitchen like a cooking show contestant. 3 plates were set. Max appeared from the hallway the moment I walked in. "Hey, world traveler," he smirked. "Heard you crushed it." Before I could answer, Dad chimed in with a full performance. How proud they were. How everyone at church was talking about me. How we should sit down soon and talk expansion. How Max had some ideas for the next phase of Record. I didn't sit. Didn't even take off my jacket. I just walked into the garage. Except it wasn't the garage anymore. It had been scrubbed. Reorganized. My prototype table shoved to the back. Bins moved. A new folding table front and center, with Max's name on a notepad and a ring light aimed squarely at the workspace. I turned around. "Why did you touch my workspace?" Mom didn't flinch. "It's not just yours, Mason. It's the garage." Dad added, "Max needed space. He's planning some pitch content." Max leaned in the doorway. "Just gonna shoot a few concept videos, for Record's next phase." He paused. "Might include a few throwback clips. You, me, and the first prototype. Real origin story vibes." That's when I laughed. Not sarcastic, just calm. "You were never in the origin story." Max blinked, caught off guard. Dad stood up like I'd insulted a flag. "Mason, this attitude." "No." I cut in. "We're not doing that." Mom folded her arms. "We're trying to help. By hijacking my space? Filming a fake narrative? You're being ungrateful," she snapped. There it was. The family motto. Be grateful. I took out my phone. Opened a folder. Held up the screen. A video from the Vancouver school pilot. Kids building Record kits. One says, "My brother said I was stupid. Now I'm showing him how to code." Then I looked at them. "You know what no one said?" My family made it all possible. I walked back into the garage. Moved my table. Pulled down their signs. Turned the ring light to the wall. Then I taped a note to the inside of the door. Not a family business. Not a group project. Not for sale. 2 days later, I packed every prototype, every build file, and left for Colorado. I also changed my shipping address. And paid off the rest of the mortgage. Then I called the bank. "Hi," I said. "I'd like to remove 2 co-signers from the monthly contribution agreement." "Are you the primary payer?" "Yep. Been that way for 5 months." They processed it in 24 hours. On day 6, I got a text from Mom. "Why does the mortgage statement say $0 due from us?" I replied. "Because I'm no longer investing in ungrateful partners." A few weeks after I moved operations out of the house, I got an email from a production facility in Oregon. They'd seen a Record kit in a school video and were curious if I'd ever considered scaling it for national distribution. I hadn't. Not seriously. Until that moment. We set up a call. I showed them the parts list, the DIY manuals, the modular design. They showed me a cost breakdown and warehouse capacity. By the end of the week, I had a tentative agreement on the table. Record was becoming more than a garage project. It was becoming a brand. I didn't post about it. Didn't tweet. Didn't gloat. But my parents found out anyway. Of course they did. The same woman who couldn't remember my birthday once set a Google alert for Record Tech founder. I found out when I got another email, this one from a local reporter who wanted to do a family-focused piece on innovation and parental support. The subject line? Your mom said you'd be open to interviewing together. I replied with a single sentence. That must have been my business partner's evil twin. A day later, Mom called. Not texted. Not emailed. An actual call. When I picked up, she jumped in like we hadn't spoken in weeks. We just think it'd be nice to celebrate this together. You've done so much. We're so proud. You told the journalists we could interview together. Silence. Then, well, we just wanted to be included. That's not wrong, is it? No, I said. But claiming credit for something you tried to take over, that is. She sighed. You've changed. Yeah, I replied. So have the locks. The next day, I got a text from Max. Okay, but if you ever do need marketing help, I'm down. Just send me your pitch deck. I'll boost it. I sent him a PDF. It was a single page. Black background. White text. Record has no open roles for liars. I haven't heard from him since. These days, I work from a small office in Boulder. I have a team of 4 real people who believed in the mission from day one. We've shipped over 2,000 kits to underfunded schools in 3 states. Every now and then, someone asks about my origin story. I keep it short. I started with a broken PC and no one cheering. Because sometimes that's all you need. Not applause. Not permission. Just a reason, and a screwdriver.